Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So, it's the end of our 4th annual Scary Spooky Sequel Month. I don't know if we could trademark that, but I like saying it. So, of course, especially with the release of Halloween Ends, a sequel that you might have an opinion, I have a different one, I'll wait and hold that until we cover it in the future, because I'd love to discuss that one with Jamie. But for the Halloween that we chose, we spoke with the man that donned that William Shatner-esque mask. And I'm talking about Brad Loree. Halloween Resurrection. So it was so great to connect with him. And I didn't have his email or anything. And I asked his good buddy Ken Kirzinger, who played Jason Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason. Actually, side note, cool story about Brad almost getting that part. So that's pretty neat. But they go way back. So when I interviewed Ken, he mentioned, oh, I'm friends with Brad Loree. He played Michael Myers. And so I thought about it. I'm like, man, we got to cover another Halloween. We covered already 5, then 4, and now this is 8. So yeah, it was fun to chat with him about donning the mask and playing an iconic role, like on the Mount Rushmore of horror slashers. He's definitely up there. So that was pretty cool. And then how he got into the stunt biz, and really how Ken helped him out so much. He pulled him aside and said, hey, there's a place for you in this business. And they worked with each other over the years on like X-Files and also in X-Men United, X2, the one that we covered a while back. So yeah, he has so many cool stories from his career. One that involves Jack Lemmon. So yeah, Brad, so cool. It was a great conversation. It was like two buddies hanging out. It's like I knew him forever. But I'm happy that I got to hang out with him for the next hour. So do me a favor, before I start the interview, please subscribe, like, share, tell your friends. We have some amazing sequel reviews and interviews with folks that you grew up loving, just like Jamie and I. So do that for me, and then follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And without further ado, stuntman, actor, and really cool dude, Brad Loree. Before I start everything, but this is great, man. I'm happy we connected.
Yes, Doug. Thank you.
That Ken is a great guy, man.
Ken is a great guy. Ken Kirzinger, I owe my life to. I don't let him spend a nickel whenever we're together. Doug, my karate instructor, who became a world champion kickboxer, sparring partner, he became a stunt guy, and through him, I met Ken and all these guys, and but Ken's the one that sat me down and said, Brad, if you go get a headshot and a pager and a resume, I'll take you around and introduce you to everybody, which I did as quick as I humanly possible. And Doug, from there on, Ken and Tony's passed away, but Ken's still with me. And anyway, I owe him everything. I'm just going to see if I can get a little more light on myself. There we go. That's a little bit.
Oh, no problem. Look at that. Looking good. So what are we talking, like early 90s? Is that the first time you started doing any of this?
Well, I did my first stunt in like 84.
Oh, I saw that. That's the Journey of Natty Gann?
Yes, yeah.
That's when you started doing all of it?
The Journey of Natty Gann. And that was a fun-filled day. But Doug, basically, I so looked up to my karate instructor and sensei, and when he got into Stunt Canada, I so looked up to these people that it never entered my head that I could ever be on the same level with these guys. They were all professional, this and that, and Tony would show me some of the videos of the stuff they did, and it just looked like, wow. So, and I always thought I wanted to be an actor anyway, and what have you, but that didn't pan out, and I guess Tony expected that I understood that the offer was there to follow in his footsteps. Let me just get this camera here, if I wanted. And Doug, but Ken's the one that kind of cuffed me upside the head and said, "Hey, dude, there's a spot here for you. Smarten up." So, and I don't know if you know the story, Doug, but I got interviewed by the producer of Jason versus Freddy. I think I was the first guy he talked to, because he had seen me in an interview as Michael Myers on set talking about why Michael Myers was the way he is, and he was quite impressed with how much thought I put into it. He had me come in and interview with him. He wanted me for the part, but when he introduced me to Ronnie, the director, Ronnie said, "I'm sorry, but you're just not tall enough." So then I was like, Ken gets it. If I don't get it, I want Ken to get it. Then they looked at a million guys and they came back to Ken, and Ken got it, and the rest is history.
That would have been pretty wild. I'm happy Ken got it, obviously, but that would have been pretty wild that if you would have played in back-to-back years, Michael Myers and Jason, that'd be pretty insane.
I mean, Doug, what that would have done for my horror film cachet. But I'm glad that Kenny got it if I didn't get it, because, like I said, I owe him everything. I owe him my film industry life, and we get to travel together and go to. We've been to Europe together now about 3 times, and we're supposed to go this summer, and then the one show got canceled, so they pushed it to next year. And if that happens, great, But yeah, it's been absolute. Tom Moore is the only guy that ever played Jason and Freddy, or Jason and Michael.
Oh, that is true. Yeah. Morgan did it in 4 and 5, right? He did it in Friday 5.
He got fired off of 4.
Yeah, because they didn't like the way he fell.
I shouldn't say he got fired. They got rid of half of the cast and crew halfway through the movie, and they never said to anybody why. Tom's still scratching his head about that, but Tom's a great guy, and I just saw him a few months ago down in Ontario, California. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I think all you guys are like a different breed when it comes to stunt guys, because when you watch the behind the scenes on part 5, and he talks about, you know what, when the tractor was coming towards me, I really wanted it to hit me, and I'm like, nobody would think that.
Well, you see, this is Doug, what I say. I mean, I got into stunts because that's where my nepotism was, and for what they hired me to do, it was fairly easy. My athleticism saw me through, but I never understood these people. But instead of being the guy riding the horse and kisses the girl at the end of the scene, I want to be the guy that falls off the horse. Well, you got to be out of your mind.
So how did it all begin? What's your beginnings, Brad? Like when you're growing up, like at what point was this something that you even thought about?
Well, I never really got along with my dad, Doug, and as a little boy, I always really I loved the 2 hours of escape in the theater, and you kind of I remember going to see Aristocrats, the Disney cartoon. I came out there wanting a cat, but when I was 6, I fell in love with Kato, Green Hornet. Forgot all about Batman and Robin. I wanted to be that guy. And then, 7 years later, I went to see Fists of Fury, and I fell in love with Bruce Lee and the martial arts. And so I joined the local karate school. There was just the one school in the little town that I grew up in. And the guy who ran most of the classes was a 17-year-old green belt named Tony Morelli. He was in grade 12. I just so looked up to him because he was such a cool guy. He was like 4 years older, and he was just and the nicest guy until you put the gloves on with him, and then he kicked your ass. But he's a great guy, and anyway, then he and I became good friends. It's a huge deal to me. Anyway.
So from there, when did you think about doing that? So like 85, what leads up to the journey of Natty Gann? Like, how did you think about, hey, I want to be that guy that...
Tony hired me to do some background work, and I was on a movie called Runaway, a Tom Selleck, Gene Simmons film. And that's where I met, I don't know if that's where I met Ken, but I remember being in the background tent with him and then this other guy that went on to become a very famous Canadian actor. But I was just doing odd jobs. I never got an education or a trade, Doug. I just bounced around all over the place. And actually, so Tony would hire me from time to time or get other people to hire me. But again, honestly, it just never entered my head that I was going to get into the union, that I was going to be a working stuntman, because I just so looked up to these guys. And then in July of 1987, I took off for a year around the world because one of my life's ambitions was to see the world. So in July of 1987, I saved up a couple bucks and I took off, and I was gone for a year. And in that time, of course, a lot of people moved up in the past where, got into the business. And God bless Ken, because if he hadn't had that conversation with me that day after, Tony hired us all to do for 2 days of a prison fight scene on a show called Street Justice with Carl Weathers. And it was after the for a second date. Ken says, "Hey, we're going for a beer," and that's when he sat me down and put it on me. So that was when I realized, okay, I'm not gonna be an actor. I didn't have the confidence to pursue that, and I went. I hate to say this, but I wasn't doing anything else other than back once in a while. I remember being in Surrey, this place outside of town here, and I'm 30 years old working as a doorman. I thought, man, you had better figure out what you're going to do soon now, man. And you're working here for $50 a night. I mean, you're going nowhere. So when Kenny put that on me, I was like, okay. And then I guess he must have talked to Tony because Tony called me for the first time. You do know what you want to do. There's a spot here for you, right? And I said, okay. And he introduced me to everybody like he's promised, Doug. And first time you get to work for a new coordinator, you go that extra yard. You're literally like you're auditioning for them, right? You got to do a good job.
Yeah.
I never took on anything that I couldn't do, and I got lucky. I knew a guy that happened. Right now,
I'm in Jersey, in New Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah,
I love Jersey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, listening to comedians and actors and whatnot. Jersey's always got this kind of certain rap
attitude.
Yeah. But no, I just love all the. I just love it with actors that I admire from Jersey and whatnot.
Danny DeVito is a pretty big time guy from Jersey. He always talks about his Jersey roots.
Wow.
Yeah, he's from the shore. He actually knew Bruce Springsteen. They grew up in the same.
No kidding. Is that right?
All those guys. Steven Van Zandt. I interviewed Steven Van Zandt's brother, Billy, who's a big time writer. Like he was in Jaws too, but he went on to write like a ton of sitcoms and stuff for years. But no, Steven and Bruce, I think, met at a record store in the Village in New York City. And then that's how they hit it off.
No kidding.
Yeah.
See, there you go. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Steven Van Zandt is one of those guys. I don't understand how these musicians. Where do they have time to take acting lessons that these guys make the transition to acting?
You want to hear a good story?
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick good story because I interviewed Billy, and Billy wrote plays too. So he was like the go-to guy for like somehow for African American comedies. He wrote on Martin. He wrote on the Wayans Brothers. Like he was the showrunner to start all those shows in the 90s.
Wow.
And he started I think he really cut his teeth on the Newhart show. That was like his first big one. But yeah, so he was writing plays and he wrote a play that was kind of like his brother's character and he was going to be in it. But he said, you know what? That's my brother's world. I'm not going to play a musician. And his brother said, I'll never act. So they're golfing one day in Jersey. His brother gets a phone call and it's from I can't think of his name, the guy that did The Sopranos. And he goes, oh, who was that, Steve? And he goes, oh, it was so-and-so. And then we auditioned for The Sopranos, this mafia show. And then the rest is history.
Unbelievable. Like the first time I saw Dwight Yoakam in Blood Simple, I was like, where did this guy learn to act? Like he just walks on the set and there's so many examples of that. I mean, I can't go through them all in my head right now, but these musicians. Now, then you watch John Mellencamp. Ooh.
Or like another Jersey guy with John Bon Jovi, like his few movies they did. Not a good actor, but no, Steven Van Zandt. And the funny thing about Steven Van Zandt, he was in the first ever Netflix show.
Really?
Did you ever watch, it was basically the same thing as Sopranos. It was basically like My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin. It was that movie, but with Steven Van Zandt moved to Europe and he started doing mafia stuff in like it's snowy. I don't know if it's like Sweden. I think it's in Sweden. And he starts the mafia in Sweden.
It's Norway.
Oh yeah, Norway. Yep.
I'm half Norwegian. I got relatives in Norway. That's why I was watching it. I watched the first season and a half, and then after a while, the writing today, Doug, it all becomes the same rehashed shit. But I was, anyway.
That's pretty funny. So the time that you started doing this, it was like right during the same boom. Like did you always like set up shop like in British Columbia and Vancouver, or did you ever venture down to Hollywood?
Doug, I worked once. Well, okay, I shouldn't admit this, but twice in the States. In 2010, I went to Pennsylvania. I'd met this guy at a horror convention, and he'd written a script just for you, Brad. And anyway, I did this movie called Mr. Hush. And I didn't get paid. I paid for my own flight and hotel because I said, listen, Dave, I said to the director, I don't want to get in trouble working in the States when it could be an American. Because my dad lived in Washington State for 18 years. And when he moved back home, he went down one day to help his buddy move. And the customs official wouldn't let him come down to help. He was just going to go and cut the guy's lawn. So they're, Homeland Security. Anyway, I talked to a couple of immigration lawyers. They said, Brad, from everything we've looked at, but Homeland Security might not have the same attitude. So don't tell them you're coming to us to work. Anyway, I got paid. And the other time I worked down south was in, I forget what year that was, but I worked on the movie Shooter, the Mark Wahlberg film, for one Philadelphia. And I had all the paperwork and all this and that. But for me to go to the U.S. Customs and tell them I'm coming down to work, I was really nervous. But when I showed him that paperwork, the guy all but shined my shoes. Like he rolled out the here you go. Oh, come right this place. I couldn't believe it. It was a real eye opener as to the power of Hollywood. Anyway, so I've done 99% of my career has been in Vancouver. I worked in Toronto, Ontario, which is way east, for 2 days. And I did a number of movies in Alberta, the next province over from us. But most of my work's been in Vancouver. And, Doug, when I was working steady, when there was 40 productions in town, the town was full. Last year they had 52 productions going on in Vancouver, BC. And right near where I grew up, they've broken ground. They're building what is going to be, when it's finished, the largest soundstage in North America. Yeah.
Wow. Who's building it?
I'm not really sure which production company it is. I've been on disability for since September of 2009.
Oh, wow.
And because I dig myself up, I got into 2 motorcycle accidents, so my back's not in a good way. But so I only do light duty stuff now. I just did 3 days on a Percy Jackson TV series from the takeoff.
Really?
I just did 3 days sitting as a passenger on a bus. That's about as much as I do these days. But anyway, it's been,
no, Vancouver's booming. Like when Ken started, which was like kind of when you started, like he started, I think, 86, 87 around that time. And that's like when I think people realize like, holy shit, we could save a lot of money filming up here. And then even now, even more so, like you said, all the productions that are going on, like Hallmark, I think, since I know this is so wrong to say, but it seems like everybody I interview from Vancouver knows each other. And I'm not saying it's not that small, but like Gary Chalk.
Yeah.
Ken Kirzinger.
Yeah.
I can't think of my, God, what's the other guy's name too? Because Gary knew him really well because they worked with each other on Fly too. I can't think of it, but he does a ton of those Hallmark movies, and it's just, it's so weird how that area just, like Gary called it the Hollywood North.
Hollywood.
That's what he calls Vancouver.
What they referred to as that today. Yeah. Well, the thing is, Doug, you're a producer. You're on set there watching over your flock Friday afternoon, but you go jump on your private jet, and you're home in time for dinner. It's only a 2.5 hour flight, right?
Yeah.
No, it's significantly cheaper. First of all, the dollar is always cheaper, of course. But right now, it's really cheap. And I remember reading somewhere that it was something like 70% cheaper to build a set in British Columbia than it was in California. But back in the day, Doug, we always used old abandoned warehouses that had been deserted for studios, and now they're building studios. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Because, 15 years ago, they could have pulled up stakes and left town in like 48 hours. But now they're actually invested in building structures here. So that's a good sign. As far as the industry staying here,
That's awesome. So Brad, so obviously Ken had that talk with you over the beer and said, hey, there's a place for you here. When was the point that you knew that you could do this forever? Because really, I don't know when he had that talk with you, but from 94 on, you were on films all the time, it seems.
Yeah, I think that was 1991 that he put that on me. And for the next 2 years, Doug, in the winter, I would go out to the prairies and work pipeline work because it paid big money and they were short jobs. You come home and get on UI. I remember I was the guy that used to see when I started hanging out with Ken. When the first night we ever went out, he introduced us to this guy named Charles Andre, who had this short brush cut hair. I says, "Boy, that's quite the do you got." He goes, "Yeah, I'm on a roll right now. I'm doubling Robert De Niro," and I almost fell over like this guy's doubling Robert De Niro. So the three of us, we used to refer to ourselves as the Three Musketeers because for the next 3 days, unless we were working, the three of us were together morning, noon, and night. And I was the guy that sold them weed, right? I was their weed dealer back in the day, right? That was free. But anyway, I should say that on the air. But anyway, yeah, and then, because Doug, you're right, it's like 93, 94 was the last time I worked outside the film industry. And for the next 15 years, I had such a career. I look back, I cannot believe it because I never really considered myself when I got in the business, Doug, if you were a good guy, a solid guy they could count on to, utilize gravity and hit the X on action. But, what's happened in the past 10, 15 years is what I call the second placers have discovered film. The world-class martial artists, the world-class gymnasts that never made it onto the box of Wheaties, like they were, like Jerry Seinfeld says, first place guy, lots of endorsements, trillions of dollars, second place, never heard of you.
The best. That's the best bit. That's my favorite special.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm telling you for the last time.
Yes. Anyway, all these kids today, they're so talented. I mean, like the stuff that this one, the motorcycle guy, when I grew up, did some pretty neat stuff, but nothing like the kids could do today, They sit on their handlebars and do stoppies while they're smoking a cigarette. Like, it's insane, the talent. And so, I mean, we've been left in the dust. So, but that's okay. That's evolution, right? So,
but I think that might look good for some people to watch a movie, but I think that's what's great. That's what I love about like the 80s, 90s movies, because you watch some of those like barroom fight scenes or a guy get thrown through the window. I'm not going to say it looks sloppy, but it looks real because it could be somebody that is a professional gymnast and pirouettes or front flips perfectly, lands on their feet. Yes. It just doesn't look as good. But when you watch like one of those, like, I don't know, I always think of like Stone Cold, that movie with Brian Bosworth, and like the fights in that movie, and you're like, this looks raw. It just looks real.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point, Doug, because I'll tell you, you go to set today, and you don't need to put any pads on because they rubberized everything. Like everything is, like the safety now is through the roof.
Yeah.
We've had some. I don't know if that has anything to do with what happened on Deadpool 2 there a few years ago, but yeah, the safety's over the top now, and since that accident, nobody's allowed to ride a motorcycle without a helmet anymore.
Oh wow, that was Deadpool 2? Wow. Yeah. Yeesh. I know obviously you have to be honest with your stunt coordinator and be like, hey, I can really do this, because you never want to like overextend. Was there ever a stunt that you did and then you watch it on playback or in the movies, you're like, holy shit?
Well, my biggest stunt that I ever did, Doug, was on a low budget TV show called Mantis.
I know Mantis, yeah.
Scientist who was a paraplegic. He was in a wheelchair, and he was the scientist by day and a crime fighter by night. And I can't remember how but I doubled the bad guy that had to jump out of this. Actually, Ken was supposed to do it. Ken had been fitted for the wardrobe and this and that, but and from the third story, it's an 8 foot by 8 foot window, which is no big deal when you're jumping down into an airbag. You got to be focused. But the floor below, Doug, had a patio that jutted out about 15 feet with a big concrete railings and so it was more of a long jump than a high jump. And on the day, we had rehearsed it. There was no glass. It was during the day. We built this nice ramp for me to run. I'm in my running shoes, jumping. But you had to jump that blue sky before you had to commit and jump before you saw the airbag. And then on the day when we had to shoot, it was at nighttime. So now it's all dark. All this, and my runway, the first half was covered in lighting flags. And the glare off the thing, so you're jumping into black space. I got the wardrobe on. I got a gun rack on my back. Very last minute, and the director's on the bullhorn. Now, okay, it's been 13 hours. We got to shoot something there. He's got 5 cameras, and then wardrobe shows up with the boots that they had fitted for Ken. And these were brand new motorcycle boots, knee-high motorcycle boots. They were hard as concrete, and they were 2 sizes too small. I had to run along the edge of the runway to start because of these flags. So I knock one over and then jump. It's going to screw up the shot. We're going to have to shoot again. So, anyways, where I was clearing it by 12, 13 feet, the railing below when we were rehearsing, on the actual day we shot it, I only cleared by about 4 feet. But the only time in my life that the coordinator during the rehearsal takes me over. He says, he was looking down. He says, "Now listen, Brad. If you fall short, because Doug, even though they blow the window for you, a pain that heavy will still slows you down." There was a guy years ago that was jumping through a window, and they blew the window late. He hit the window and fell into the sill and sliced his knee, all the ribbons. And
oh my God!
And this coordinator says, "Brad, if you get short and you end on the railing here, don't try to save yourself by rolling in. Continue rolling out onto the boxes." And he said, "I don't think it'll kill you, but you're gonna be do you have any allergies we should know about?" That's the only time I've ever had that sort of pre talk. And anyway, that went really well. The director, who's one of my favorite guys in the world, he's gone now. His name's Kim Manners. Second season of Breaking Bad. At the end of one of the Doug had said, "In loving memory of our friend Kim Manners," and brought me to tears. But anyway, Kim had said, "Brad, that was the most exciting stunt I've ever had the privilege to direct." And when he cut it for the actual show, Doug, I don't know how to describe it, but when you see the guy run and jump out the window from the inside, and then they cut to the outside, he showed the guy coming through the window once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So he kept going back and showing it. He showed 4 of the 5 camera angles because he was so happy with it. Anyway, that flow of the scene, I've never seen that done before. That the scene disrupted. I want to keep.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm very pleased with that, and that was the one stunt though where I was like, I had to suck it up to breath and just have faith in the rehearsal technique and all that, right? So anyway.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Yeah, and then we talked about you obviously were working so busy 94 on or 93, 94, and a lot of cool movies, but then it seemed like right at 2000, it seemed like you were doing more studio movies. Obviously, you did Wrongfully Accused, cool movie. Dudley Do Right, I love watching that as a kid. Brendan Fraser's awesome. But then 2000s, it's whoa, The Sixth Day, Freddy Got Fingered. What are some of the things you did? Freddy Got Fingered is a funny movie to me. What were some of the things you did on that?
Freddy Got Fingered. Did you actually watch that thing?
Yeah.
Doug, I've never seen it, but I was doubling Harlan Williams, and I was wearing a cast on my leg, and it was only an insert shot, I think, of Rip Torn kicking me in the shin. But I also was driving a car that slid kind of sideways through the intersection after they went through in their weird mobile. But I've never seen the movie, so that was a weird movie. But I loved Dublin Harlan Williams because I think he's great. I got to meet Rip Torn, who I love.
Oh yeah,
Green. So
wow. So you do car stuff too? Did you do a lot of car stunts?
well, as a stunt guy, Doug, you should be able to ride a motorcycle. As much physical kind of action as you can possibly add to your resume. The more you can do, the more you work, right? You know, and whether it's motorcycles, ATMs, trapeze work, anything, any kind of physical movement, cars. I got into the business because I was the big guy who played the bad guy that got beat up by the little hero, right?
Yeah.
But I was brought to my attention by Charles and Ken that you need to expand your resume as far as your abilities, your skills.
Did you do burns at all? Any of your stunts? You ever do burns?
I only ever did. I never got to do a full burn. There's a handful of things I never got to do that I wish I had done just once, even to say I did them as a stunt guy. But I never did a full burn. But I did do an arm burn, and I did an arm burn doubling Winchester from MASH. What's his name?
Oh, I can't. Was that Alan Alda? No, right?
No, not Alan Alda. Winchester. Anyway,
God, I should know.
He's got names. That's why I can never remember him. Anyway, I did an arm burn on a show called Poltergeist, and I also on Stargate SG-1. I was running the soldier, and they blew this explosion off just as I was running by it. And my whole back got lit on fire. I didn't know it. I was running because I was still in the frame. But when I got to the end of the thing, Brad, you're on fire, so I had to jump I had to go on my back, and they were throwing gravel in my eyes. I don't know what that did, but anyway. It's a crazy business, Doug.
It is. No, I remember just Ken telling me, Ken told me he had this bag that had everything in it. He's like, I had this bag to bring out auditions, and it had everything you could need because you had to be ready, for whatever movie. Because within a day, you could work on 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, back in the day, we did double headers, which are always unnerving because one coordinator speaking at you, why aren't you here, and whatnot. But you always got the heads up pretty much as to what if it was anything out of the ordinary. If it was something you needed more than your elbows and your back pad and your knees, they would tell you. If you had to bring your Nomex and your gel and all this and that, but for burns and what have you.
So what was the audition process to become Michael Myers? Is that a long audition? Because it seems like
went on forever.
How long?
I had just done a show called Los Luchadors for Fox. It was a low-budget kids show. And these guys were Mexican wrestlers by day and crime fighters by night. The last 5 episodes, because my coordinator who hired me left after eight episodes and left me with the show. So now I got 2 contracts and I'm making big cake, okay? But we do the 13 for the first season. And as a professional courtesy, one of the ADs went and interviewed with the Halloween people. And in that interview, they mentioned to him they weren't sure who was going to be there. In the old days, when the American coordinator came up, they would always match it with the Canadian coordinator to fetch coffee and tell them who's who in the zoo, right? But so they said they didn't know who their American, the Canadian stunt coordinator was going to be, and they weren't sure who they're going to hire to be Michael Myers. And so this guy named Brian Knight says, "Well, you should talk to this Brad Loree. I just worked with him on this show. He's just started coordinating. He's a great guy. Blah blah blah." So I'm driving my car. I get this phone call. It's Tracy Long, the production manager. He says, "Brad, we're looking," and I thought, Doug, that she said they're looking for a stunt double for Michael Myers. Could you come? She says, "How tall are you?" I said, "I'm 6'2.5". "Oh, perfect. Can you come in tomorrow to meet the exec?" And I thought, Michael Myers is doing a horror film. I'm thinking of Austin Powers, right? His career's gone in the toilet. So I go in there the next day, and Doug, literally everybody was there. They hired everybody. It was almost like an afterthought. Oh, yeah, we better hire somebody to transport the mask from A to B on set. Anyway, I do the walk for the director a few times, and the producer says, "Okay," and he turns to the producer and says, "Yeah, he'll be fine." And the producer says, "Brad, You're the first guy we've looked at, and of course we have to consider other people. But if we do go with you, we're going to have to probably fly you down to LA to cast your head to build the mask around, you know. And I said, wait, I got to go all the way to LA to double some hummy actor. And he said, you're not going to double the guy, you're going to be the guy. And that's when the actor and he went. And the truth is, Doug, I've never been a horror fan. When I was 19, I was dating this pair of tits, and she only loved horror films. So that's all we saw for like 2 years. And then when we broke up, I was heartbroken, but I was like, I never have to watch a horror film again. And the next week, everybody's talking about this Halloween movie, goddammit. And so my cousin said she liked it, so I ended up renting it one day. And halfway through, I was like, this is an excellent movie. It's not overly bloody, gory, or violent, but I'm on the edge of my seat. This guy's so creepy. So when they offered me that job, Doug, I passed on going back to Los Luchadors, which was a good move. My buddy Dean took it. They did one episode, second episode. In the middle of the third episode, the producers came on set and pulled the plug and said, here we are today having this chat. If I was on Los Luchadors, we wouldn't be talking about this. So I took the job, and it was the closest the stunt guy comes to being a movie star. You know, I remember sitting in my trailer because there's just the cubby hole that you give the stunt guys, and all the actors had the big trailers and whatnot. And one of the kids was walking by and saw me with the door open and said, "Hey, what are you doing in this little hole?" I said, "Well, this is my room." "Oh, no, you're the star of the show." I says, "No, the mask is the star of the show. I just moved around. You be quiet." I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. But anyway, Doug, I do these conventions every once in a while. I make new friends all over the world. Ken and I have been to Europe together 3 times. I've been to Europe 7 times on the convention dime. We were supposed to.
That's awesome.
But we were supposed to go this summer. We were supposed to go to Amsterdam and then Birmingham, England the next weekend. But Amsterdam got canceled. So our agent said, "You guys want to go to Birmingham for a 2 or 3 day show?" We said, "You know what? We're too old to go for a weekend. If it isn't a doubleheader, we're not going." So we both passed on it. So hopefully, but they said they would bring us back next year. So we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, no. So on Halloween Resurrection, one of the coolest things, I'm sure you never watched the behind the scenes on it, right?
I have actually watched the behind the scenes because the scene that I played a fire cop inspector, whatever, got cut. Where I was actually. But what were you going to ask me?
No, there's a line in it. So you were like dating a girl at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it lasts after that, but you said Jamie Lee Curtis came over and planted one on you.
Well, when I saw that, I mentioned it to Donna Keegan, Jamie's double, and Donna said, "Oh, Jamie will never shoot that scene the way it's written." So I never thought to mention it to my girlfriend. But the day of, my girlfriend said she needed my truck, so she came to work with me, and I unloaded my stunt bags so she could take the truck to go about her day. But just then, Jamie just happened to be there. She runs up. I think this is how we should shoot the scene. She grabs me, tips me, plants one on me right in front of my girlfriend. So when I got home, I didn't really kiss butt because she was quite upset. "You never told me you're going to be kissing Jamie Lee Curtis." I go, I never thought they were going to. So, I know that relationship didn't last long, but not because of that.
No, I know. No, just it was funny, like the way you told that story, like in the little snippet. Because I think one thing with that movie that is so like I think ahead of its time was the cameras on all the actors and all those scenes. Because on that behind the scenes documentary, they have all of that footage that they didn't use, but actual like legit footage, not like any like mistakes or anything. So continually, you're watching the movie through the cameras that were on the actors' ears, which I think was like so ahead of its time. So for you, like being that role of Michael Myers, was there any stunts that you weren't allowed to do? Like Ken was pissed off because he wasn't allowed to do like the burn scene in the cornfield and an underwater scene because they were like, "Whoa, if something happens to you, then you can't be Jason for the other parts." Was there any that you weren't allowed to do?
And he suggested he wasn't happy being able to do those. He's so full of shit.
Because he wanted to win the award. He wanted to win like Stuntman of the Year.
Well, he's never mentioned that to me, and I happen to know for a fact that there were certain scenes he just go and get my stunt double to shoot that scene. You know? Oh yeah, he was using the guy as a stunt double. He was also using him as a photo double because he's a younger version of Ken, a guy named Glenn Innes. He looked exactly like Ken, only he's a couple of years younger, few years younger. Anyway, no, Doug, I did everything. The only scene in that movie that's not me as Michael Myers was the very end when the coroner opens the bag, the body bag, and his eyes pop open. We shot a couple different endings in Vancouver, but the test audiences didn't like them. They wanted the cliche ending. It was so obvious. But they shot that in New York. So that guy that popped open his eyes, that wasn't me. But everything else.
Oh, it wasn't you. Okay.
And the stunt going through the window when Busta Rhymes kicked me was tricky because that window was only wide enough for my shoulders. And I had to run backwards 3 steps to get through the window. So a couple of the first takes of the rehearsals, I was catching my shoulder and cutting through the window, and they didn't want that. So. But that was the one gag, and I had the camera on me the whole time, so you actually see the camera kind of spinning. So
that's awesome. It seemed like you had a lot of fun doing that movie because in one of the behind the scenes featurettes, it's a scene with when I can't remember their name, Sean Patrick, forget his third name, but him and the girl are like trying to get out of the window, and you have the one guy by the head, but it's like they're only filming. Really, the camera's like on them too. So you're like kind of messing around with him, like kind of like toying with his head while holding it.
Oh, Ian Thomas, whatever his name was, he and I really bonded because he never really knew his
cool.
well. I was like a big brother to him. And I can't remember what I said behind the mask when we were rehearsing. But he had such a hard time not laughing for the longest time. And I had the same problem when we were rehearsing the scene where Busta, dressed as Michael, follows me through the living room. And he goes,
I love that.
During the rehearsals, I could not hold it together. He was so funny. No, we had a lot of fun on that show. I just loved everybody. Apparently, Busta was a little tardy getting to set, but I never saw any of that. He gave me a giant, very authentic bear hug every morning in the trailer, and I just got along with all the kids, and it's been really kind of. Whenever I see them today, you know, where their careers have gone, it's always nice to see, and I hope one day we have a reunion.
It should soon. Well, you should have done it this year, right? This is 20 years.
August 2002, it came out, but. I just wish them all the best. I mean, Katie Sackhoff, I love to death. She made us all these, with her own hands, she made these coffee travel mugs that I misplaced mine. It just struck me because I've told people many times that when I wake up and the house is on fire and I got to jump out the window naked, the 3 things I'm going to have on me, is my Omega Seamaster watch, my Muhammad Ali autograph, and my Katie Sackhoff Resurrection travel coffee mug. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, I think it's so cool the way they did the set for that movie. Like doing that, and that's big time to do it like basically the whole movie is like sort of artificial. Obviously the exterior shots that they did somewhere that like the way they made it look like it was in a street. That's ahead of its time. 2002. Unbelievable.
Doug, I'm telling you, when you know the movie Purple Rose of Cairo, where the actor walked out of the screen. That's how I felt when we went to the set for the first time, walking up to the Myers house and walking into the house. I felt like we'd walked through the screen and we were now in the movie. It was they did such a fantastic job. It just blew me away.
Did you keep anything from that movie?
I did not, Doug. I know that some of the older guys tell stories of bringing things home, but I didn't. But my first convention in 2004, I think it was 4 or 5. Malika Todd told me that he would give me one of the masks that I wore in the movie, and I never followed it up because I didn't realize what that actually meant. It was suggested to me that an autographed mask worn in the movie might be worth $5,000. Well, they just auctioned one off in England. That was one of the 3 that I wore, and they got 50,000 English. 50.
Wow.
That's like 83,000 Canadian dollars. Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you ever keep anything from any of your movies? Like early on, did you have the wherewithal to be like, hey, let me take a script or let me take.
No, I bought clothes from set because at the end of the movie, sometimes they're really stuck. They get, costumes get stuck with a bunch of clothes they're supposed to get rid of, and but no, I've never. My buddy Tony, the guy I was telling you about that's passed away, he took a cop hat from a show once, which I was shocked. He's not a thief. And he goes, they got tons of the. But yeah, but that way anyway. No, I've never stole from set.
Yeah. No, but there's just like, it's so cool that all these things you worked on. It's so cool you had that relationship with Ken because you worked with him so many times around here, like X-Men United.
X-Men and Street Justice and X-Files, which he used to coordinate.
Oh, yeah.
I did bring home the rubber prosthetic from the Sixth Day that they used to make the stunt double look more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They gave that to me, yeah, because they had a bunch of them. Of course, every day they were doing this, So I had that, but I don't know where it is today. I threw that away. You're young, you think these things are going to keep coming, but now that I'm older, I wish I'd have taken a lot more pictures on set. Mind you, I grew up in an era before cell phones, so. But these kids today, I hope they're taking lots of pictures. So.
I'm sure they are. No, it's like one of those things you don't know what to keep or what not to. I know a lot of movies give like parting gifts. They'll give like a t-shirt or a hat. Like I interviewed this guy, Gregory S. Cummings. Like he while we were doing the interview, he was like, "Oh, let me show you." And he like opened a drawer and he had like a shirt. He was in Cliffhanger. He played one of the bad guys in Cliffhanger. And he's like, "Look at this shirt." And it was like this cool, funky jacket that like Stallone got for the crew and cast. So like those things are cool, like to have one day. What are you going to do with it? Maybe you'll sell it or you have a family member that would want to keep it, but it's still something cool to have.
Well, I'll tell you a story quickly about Dick Warlock, who I thought Halloween 2 was one of the best sequels I've ever seen. Anyway, Dick took home a mask, the overalls, I think a knife, and the boots.
Wow.
And how many years after the fact, he met this guy that said, "Hey, I'd like to buy that whole set from you for $15,000." And they agreed on the price. He gave Dick $5,000 as a down payment. And he gave Dick about 4 phone numbers to keep in touch with the guy. Well, I forget exactly how long it was, but it was a ridiculously long time. He didn't hear from the guy for over, I think, a decade. But he put money in a safe, and he never ever banked it or spent it. And it's like something like 12 years later, this guy got a hold of Dick and said, "Hey, I got the rest of the money." And so he took the other $10,000 and gave the outfit. But that's like Dick and I are very close. And
holy shit!
And I just thought that was such an honorable thing, so much integrity. They would hang on to that money the whole time.
So when you auditioned for it, last question about Halloween, because I know you said you dated that girl for a couple of years and watched a lot of horror. How do you go to figure out how you're going to walk and like your movements and like the head turn? Is that from watching other movies, just being inspired and putting your own spin on it?
I watched all the Halloweens on a VCR, fast forwarding to the Michael Myers scenes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bite my tongue on what I think are certain performances, okay? But I always thought the scene where and I know, and I am 99% certain this was Nick Castle walking from the house across the street towards Jamie Lee at the end when she had the kids she was babysitting, and he was coming after her. That is the walk that I tried to copy. I watched 1 and 2 a lot, but I kept watching Nick Castle over, and because to me, Nick Castle's Michael Myers.
Yeah.
And I tried to copy, and the way Rick Rosenthal described it was, Brad, it's as if the legs and hips are transporting the upper body. The upper body doesn't move. It's just the legs that move. It's just a creepy, methodical gait, And so that's what I tried to do. And I was nervous I've never been the only one that they're pointing the camera. Unfortunately, the mask helped me a lot. But because Rick was constantly reminding me, Brad, slower, slower, slower. Take your time. But he was great. He was great.
No, you're right. Like Nick Castle, and I just think the head turn, like what he did, obviously, when you have that first blueprint to go with, that's what everybody's going to try to emulate or put their own spin on. But I think when he sticks Bob, when he sticks Bob in the kitchen,
Yes.
and just his head turn to almost make it, because Michael Myers is kind of like such an enigma as a character. I think a lot of obviously the slashers are like Freddy. You know why they do it, but with Michael Myers, I guess because I don't know, him and Jason just don't say anything. They're silent.
Doug, when they interviewed me on set and asked me why Michael Myers is the way he is, as best I can remember, I said he's like a man-child. He doesn't understand violence, and he isn't intentionally harming people. He's like a cat playing with a mouse, and when it stops playing and it's dead, that's why he tilts his head. He's trying to figure out why the mouse doesn't want to play anymore.
That's good.
That's who I worked with when I played him, and I think that's what the producer on Jason admired so much, because he just thought, anyway, he appreciated the thought that I put into it. That's what I was working with. He's a man-child that's, his idea of play is murder, but he doesn't understand death, and he is possessed by a demon, because this is why he's so extra strong and what have you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I think it's so cool when it comes to horror. And I know obviously you have your feelings towards it, and obviously you played an iconic role in the history of horror, like the Mount Rushmore of like horror slashers. You played one of them. And I think that's what's so cool about horror. Like I interviewed the actress that was the final girl in part 5, Melanie Kinnaman.
Oh yeah.
And so she had this. She was in a movie that it got panned real hard because it wasn't. Spoiler alert, it wasn't Jason. It was the ambulance driver. So, but still, it's so funny when it comes to horror. If it's any other genre, if the movie isn't good or people don't like it, guess what? It's going to just collect dust. But for some reason, when it comes to a horror movie, it's going to get watched no matter what. Like every year, no matter what, I'll watch all the Halloweens. Like even though I despise 5, and I don't like 6. The only reason I don't like 5 is because I love 4. Like, I think 4, sequel-wise, is so crafty the way Michael's played by Tom, which the parts that Tom played, I know, I'm trying to think of the guy who played
George Wilbur.
And the other parts of it, I know there's just something about that movie and how great it was. And the fact that in 5, they're basically like, all the stuff you loved? Well, we're going to end all of that.
Yeah. Well, Doug, I'll tell you, I've said this a million times. I'm not a big fan of horror movies, but I'm a big fan of horror fans. They're so loyal to their genre, and I mean, I'm one of the personalities in the business, but they give you the shirt off their back. They're just the nicest people. I don't get it. They all want to see blood, guts, and gore, but they're just the sweetest human beings that you ever see. So, I just love going to the conventions, and because you make new friends in each show, and meet new people, and people telling you how far they've come to get your autograph, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think it's movie making. I think a lot of people that love horror, I think it's just the fact they love movie making and like practical effects and stunts. Like they love seeing something that makes them feel a little uneasy and almost makes you feel like it's real. But obviously, it's not because it's a movie, but just some of the stuff they can do, like effects wise. Like even in 2002, I don't know how much of that was CGI. It didn't look like a lot of it was. When you pierce the cameraman in like the first kill in the house, when you pierce him with that piece that I don't know if that's on a lot of tripods. I don't know if that's on my tripod, but when you pierce that guy, it looks legit. Like
if you started CGI in horror films, the horror audience would die off.
I know. Those are the ones that don't make it. You can tell when it's CGI.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
The one where I'm hanging in the wires and I'm all, I'm burning up and all that. That was a mannequin, but that wasn't CGI. That was actual flame.
Wow.
So, and I'm proud of that. All the stunts were real. There was next to no. I don't think there was any CGI really in our movie. And I don't think the horror fans would stand for it if they started CGI and everything. Anyway.
No. So let's talk. So before I let you go, because this has been so much fun, man. You're such a character and you're such a great guy. Let's talk about like your acting wise. Is there any acting like that you did over the years that you really liked? I think it was pretty cool that you're in X2. You were in the flash forward scene or the flashback scene.
Doug, I was for half a second. I was doubling.
Still pretty cool.
Brian Cox as a younger man. Forget his name. I was also one of the SWAT guys, but we were all covered in all that stuff. You never know one to the other. But working on X-Men was a big deal. But my proudest acting gig, there was two, and I have them on a demo reel. I got to get them on IMDb, but I played a firefighter on X-Files, and I had a very quick, short scene with David Duchovny. But I'm proud of it because the beats are all there, and I just remember how incredibly nervous I was. I was able to pull the seat up. I was literally looking for a hole in the ground. We were outside. I was looking for somewhere where I could fall in the. I wanted to break my leg, do anything that I didn't have to shoot the seat. But I watched that scene today, and I just go like, "Wow, you actually pulled it off." Get scared as you were, and I was also I was the dream version of this girl's father, who was a bank robber on a TV show called The Marshal or Marshall. Was it called Marshall? With Brad. I forget the actor's name. He's really, really good. He was anyway.
The Marshal. Let's see who was in it. It looks familiar. Oh, Jeff Fahey.
Jeff Fahey. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was this girl's father had been going around killing people and robbing banks, and she had this sort of James Dean vision of him. And in the end of the episode, she meets him. And he's just a scumbag. But I was the dream version with the rolled up T-shirt, and the hair and all that. Anyway, so even though I didn't have any lines, it showed him robbing banks and whatnot. It was a lot of fun. It was a good show too. I also, the most starstruck I've ever been, Doug, I played a sort of a farmhand. There's two of us in a diner, and we sort of accost, or we come on to this young woman that Jack Lemmon is traveling with. There's a TV movie called The Long Way Home. And as a kid, my dad was a big fan of Jack Lemmon and the movie The Apartment in particular, or The Outer Tower.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was on set with Mr. Lemmon, and I was but because I had dialogue, I felt compelled. So he was just by himself, and I went up and I said, Mr. Lemmon, I don't normally do this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm Brad. I'm playing so-and-so, and, and he shook his hand and whatnot. And then when I get maced in the face, I spin and crash into this table down to the ground and turning over and whatnot. And as soon as they called cut, Jack Lemmon came to help me up. He tapped me on the back. Oh, that was great. That was a great job. And I just thought, wow, this is one of the guys from the golden era of Hollywood, and he's clapping me on the back and giving me kudos. So that was a big deal to me.
Oh my God, that's so cool. But now I always ask people this question. This has been so much fun. What if you weren't doing this? Obviously, you were doing the bouncing, you were working on the pipeline. Was there anything like any other careers when you were younger? Because I know you were doing the martial arts, so you didn't have like an inkling of this happening, like being in Hollywood for 25 plus years.
Doug, I honestly asked myself that, and people ask me, if it wasn't for Ken Kirzinger, I can't imagine where I'd be today. I would suggest that I'd probably be in prison. I was never much on working 9 to 5, and I probably would have gotten into something not overly. I mean, back when we were talking, I knew an awful lot of guys that were growing with marijuana illegally, and I probably would have gone that trade. And I maybe should say that out loud because that's the truth. But where I ended up, boy, that you got to throw a rubber ball and let it ricochet, and where that's what it would have been, man.
Brad, this has been awesome, man. Hey, anytime you're in a convention, because we do a lot of them in Jersey. Have you ever been to one in Jersey?
I've been to Cherry Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not too far from me.
I want to come back and see my buddy Eugene. So, Doug, I need you to email me your mailing address because I want to send you an autographed picture.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for that.
What headshot is it? Is it what kind of photos do you have?
I've got a picture of me as Michael Myers in front of the Myers house with the knife, and in the background is the jack-o'-lantern. That particular, I've got like a dozen different shots, but that's
cool.
My idea. I said to the photographer, I want to stand in front of the house with the knife, and I want to see the bullet. And so I've got some that are mounted on like foam, so you just have to take a piece of tape, stick it to your wall. It could be in the back.
I appreciate. Oh, dude, look at this really cool one. I don't know if so me and my buddy. Are you a fan of like Charles Bronson?
I worked with Charles Bronson in a movie that we called Seawolf.
Oh no, wait,
yeah.
Gary Chalk worked on that movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wait, so tell me about Charles. You worked with him?
Well, not directly with him, but he was the star of the show, and we all.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what I did. I think I fell off a railing into the water in that show. But Alex Green, the founder of Stunts Canada, had doubled Charles Bronson on a couple of things, and so he was good friends with Charlie. But yeah. What do you got there?
That's cool. So me and this kid I randomly met. He actually works for one of the radio stations in New York, but we met each other on Twitter. He was a big Bronson fan. So I interviewed a couple, one of the bad guys from Death Wish 3. It's like we're growing up. My dad showed me these movies. Like I have 2 kids now. I just had a son a few months ago. I'm telling you, Brad, I could not imagine showing my kids the stuff my dad would show me. We'd be watching Death Wish, and I was like 6 or 7 years old, seeing the graphic scenes, and him be like, "Let's get this guy. Yeah, get that bad guy."
Your dad was prepared for the world at a young age, Doug.
He was. But no, so we watched Death Wish 3. It was always on Channel 11 in New York. And so we interviewed this guy, Joe Gonzalez, who he played Charlie's right-hand man in Death Wish 3, like for the last sequence. So he sent me this photo. And then like a few months later, this kid, Chris, who has like a Bronson Twitter account, he like blindly reached out to a bunch of people from the movie. So we did a reunion on what would have been Bronson's 100th birthday.
Wow.
With Alex Winter from, Bill and Ted. He was in Death Wish 3. Kirk Taylor and this guy, Tony Spiridakis, who ended up like doing a bunch of stuff, but he was one of the bad guys in that movie too. So no, it's so cool from this. And I would love to hang that on my wall. So yeah, I'll send you my address, man. I appreciate it.
Please do. And send me your digits. And the next time I'm in Jersey, I'll look you up.
Hell yeah, man. I would love that.
Doug, I appreciate it.
Man, wasn't Brad great? So cool how nice he was at the end, because we do video interviews. So if you ever want to watch those, they're on our website or our YouTube channel. Just search Good, Bad, and Sequel, or go to sequelsonly.com and you can choose what you want to watch. And yeah, so he looked at my background. I have a few, like, bunch of VHS of sequels, and he saw like a space on the wall. He's like, "Hey, send me your address and I'll send you an autographed photo." So how cool is that? Autographed photo of him in front of that cool prefab Michael Myers house that they built in the studio, which, yeah, I cannot wait to talk that movie with Jamie. It's going to be fun, especially after the last one that came out. My opinion's changed watching this again and talking to Brad. And yeah, it was cool really going back in time, because I believe I saw this in the movie theater. So yeah, so your homework, watch Halloween Resurrection. I think it's on Paramount Plus. I'm sure you can rent it for a few bucks somewhere. And don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night, guys.